How do you build a high-performing culture? This is Culture Architects. Candid conversations with extraordinary leaders sharing their biggest successes, failures, and lessons learned on their culture journeys. Here's David J. Friedman.
So here at Culture Architects, we get to meet a lot of different culture architects, and they come from all different walks of life. Today, we welcome Pete Kusiak. Pete is the creator of the Fun First strategy. He's also the author of Drop the F-Bomb in Your Business, which is a really interesting title, which we'll get into. With over 20 years of experience working with leaders and entrepreneurs, and he's been an entrepreneur himself, today he's really a sought-after resource person on workplace happiness and building infectious, vibrant company cultures. And of course, that's what we're all about here. So Pete, welcome to Culture Architects. I'm glad to have you with us today.
Thanks for having me on.
Oh, it's our pleasure. So I always like to go back to the background and how people got to where they are. And so I'm curious, I saw in your background that you've done some coaching, your sports coaching, and you have sort of a fitness background. So how did you get from there to being coaching entrepreneurs and getting into the culture? Like, give me the background here.
Yeah, it's actually, I hope you find it interesting, but long story, but okay. I went to school for sport and exercise science, kinesiology, and with a degree in coaching, right? So it's like, what the heck do you do with that? I taught high school for a year and I hated it. So I ended up landing a job. I answered an ad in a newspaper. Go figure. I'm telling you how old I am. It said, do you like working with kids? You have background in sports karate? If so, call the number. I did. It was a franchise. It was called the Little Gym franchise. Okay. And it was a locally ran, franchise there in the Greensboro, North Carolina market, and fell in love with it. So I was coaching kids and having a great time and made a name for myself, and then quickly got offered a position at their corporate headquarters, because the Little Gym is it's actually a world franchise. It's an international franchise. So that's kind of how it started my corporate career as a trainer, and ultimately landed into a consulting role with them where I was coaching entrepreneurs within that franchise. Decided I was going to do it for myself. My wife and I said, hey, we're surrounded by entrepreneurs. We got the itch ourselves. These fabulous people are so successful. What should we do? We should open our own. So we did. So went into business ownership for ourselves, wildly successful. Had 3 in our Charlotte market of the Little Gym franchises.
So they are all Little Gym franchises.
Yeah, yep. And then we kind of built an operation where we could step back out of it. So we became, I want to say semi-absentee, but it was really more like absentee owners, because we had built such an amazing team of people. They ran it for us. And then so I got into more coaching. Business coaching with other businesses, other franchises around the country, embarking my wisdom, so to speak. So, which led me to really come up with this concept that, I was sitting around thinking about why businesses are successful, why they're not, why were my businesses so successful? I said, it really boiled down to the ones that were having the most fun were the ones that were being successful. They were the ones that were winning, right? So it's like, if I could take this concept, this fun into business and make it a strategy, I think I'd be onto something. And here we are today.
Wow. So let's go to your book, your latest book. You've got another book before that, right? So dropping the F-bomb. So what's the basic premise of that book?
It's first, it's a play on words, right? Drop the F-bomb in your business. Right. F being fun. Right. And the premise is that you can actually have fun while achieving business success. It's not necessarily a reward, right? Like, if we hit these business goals, we can then have fun. This book really teaches you, it introduces the Fun First strategy, an actual tangible business strategy, but it allows you to kind of, as an business owner, as a leader, whatever, it allows you the opportunity to fuse fun into hitting business goals. So that's really the premise behind it. And it teaches you and tells you about the methodology, but then there's a playbook inside the actual book, which has over 60 different ideas on how to actually play games, right? I call them game-changing plays for business. So that's the premise behind the book. It's really just a combination of these amazing techniques to add more fun into business.
So let me ask you this. You made the comment there that you have found that you can actually have fun while doing business. And I'm curious about your experience and point of view. I have a suspicion of what that might be, but I'd like to hear it about, is it just that you can have fun while doing business, or does fun actually create more business?
Yes. Yes,
Yeah.
and yes.
Okay.
So you can have fun while doing business, right? There's certainly things that you can look for,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's your business operations, right?
Mm-hmm.
Our igniter question, part of the strategy is to ask yourself, how can I make this fun? So if you're looking at your
Mm-hmm.
business operations and you're like, oof, there's something amiss, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
how do I make it more fun? So
Mm-hmm.
then you're having more fun interactions with your team, with your customers, whatever the case might be. With your products, some products lend to being more fun than others, some
Mm-hmm.
don't, and that's okay. But there could be systems or processes you put into play from an operations perspective that are going to make it more fun and enjoyable. Your surroundings, right? Whether
Mm-hmm.
you're a corporate office, a remote office, customer facing, brick and mortar, whatever, how can you make those the four walls, I call it, how can you make those more fun, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a break room for employees to be able to escape, right, to have some fun, or take a mental health break, or I call them mandatory fun breaks, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you have those? So and then the customer interaction, so this is kind of the second part of that is,
Mm-hmm.
can you have, can fun lead to more business? Absolutely, because if you're having fun, you're in a joyful place, you're healthy as a team member, you're
Mm-hmm.
the energy is going to be good, right? And I don't want to sound too hippie about it, but
Mm-hmm.
certainly you are going to exude just a pleasant nature. You're going to be more creative. The engagements you have with your coworkers or your customers are just going to be that much better. So it will lead to more business.
Mm-hmm.
Healthy employees lead to more business, right?
Sure.
New solutions to opportunities become more creative when you inject more fun into the business. So yes, it is I call it detonating the bomb. That's where
Mm-hmm.
drop the F bomb, because it's a fun
Mm-hmm.
bomb. I mean, and it
Uh-huh.
has explosive opportunities for you as a business.
It's interesting. Our audience members who follow us know that we teach companies to build a set of behaviors, which we call fundamentals, that define how they want their culture to be. And they take one each week and they focus on it. And nearly every one of our clients has one, as do we in our own company, that is called Keep Things Fun. And it's not the primary one, but it is one of the core behaviors. And we often say in rolling it out into workforces that, keeping things fun is not an afterthought. It's just as important as honoring commitments and practicing blameless problem solving, many of the other behaviors that we teach. And in a group of employees, we'll often ask them, so why do you think this was on the list? Like, was this a mistake, or why did this make the list? And they usually get the points that you've made, that, if we're having fun, we're going to be more engaged. We're going to deliver better service. We're going to be more innovative. We're going to work better together as teams, and so on. Well, one of the things that I often try to have them remember as well is one of perspective. That sometimes, in my experience, and I suspect you've seen this, Pete, sometimes, particularly in environments in which we take our work seriously, where we care deeply about wanting to do great work, sometimes we can take ourselves too seriously. And sometimes, very few of our businesses are life and death. There are some, but not most of them. And so if something goes wrong, it's not life and death. And sometimes just the ability to step back and have some perspective and be a little more lighthearted about it helps people to stay balanced instead of getting so stressed about things.
Yeah, absolutely. It's critical, especially with the younger workforce coming in,
Mm-hmm.
and the things that they're demanding in their work experiences. That, one, kudos to you guys for adding fun into your values. I would challenge you to add it as number one, as I believe that's the core philosophy for us. But
somehow integrity seems to come higher than fun. I'm not sure why, but
it's one of those when you are talking with whether it's candidates or your team, and you're building this amazing culture, right? It shows the commitment that the company is making to their mental health, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, we want to achieve goals. Yes, we want to have purpose in work. We want to do well, especially when you're in the right seat, you're in the right organization, you have, aligned goals and things like that. But if you can do it in a way that is healthy and rewarding, your employees are really going to treasure that. And, my wife and I, when we were running our business, I said, whether I have a team member employed with us for 1 day, 1 year, or forever, I want it to be the most amazing experience they have with work ever. And that changed everything for us. It changed everything because we eliminated a grind culture. Yes, we wanted to make money in business. Yes, we wanted to be profitable. But when we went into our meetings, when we went into our conversations with our team about those, it was immediate shutdown. Immediate shutdown. They just didn't care about that. So we were misaligned there, right? So, building that culture around fun was like the easiest way for us to, because we all universally agreed that fun really was what we all wanted to have at work. And we made a lot of money during the process, right? Yeah. So those strategies, those are the things that I talk to about with my clients about building a culture is, if you could find something that unifies the whole team, right? Home run. Because not everybody has the same measurement for, like you had mentioned, integrity, right? Or commitment. My level of commitment could be different than your level of commitment and my vision of that. The same goes for fun, right? Because there's diverse perspectives on fun. But for the most part, once you start finding common things and interests that you like to do, it's so easy to build upon them, right? And it's really fast. It's really fast, I found. So it really did act as a catalyst, I think, for such success.
So as I think about different companies and different leaders, because leaders set the culture, I think about, so I mentioned that virtually all of our companies, I can only think of a couple off the top of my head where keeping things fun is not in their list of what we call fundamentals. And I think about one in particular that specifically did not want to have it. And it was an interesting situation. It was a great company, but they were owned by a Japanese firm. And the CEO of the Americas said, it's not that we're not allowed to have fun, but that's not part of Japanese business culture. And if we were to say, we got to keep things fun as one of our core elements of it, I don't think that would fly with our Japanese parent company. Now, again, it doesn't mean we're not allowed to have fun or anything like that, but that's just not how they look at business.
Sure.
I'm curious, have you seen certain, whether it be national cultures or types of companies in which, again, it doesn't mean they're not allowed to have fun, but that promoting fun as a core thing would not fly there?
Of course. I mean, I've had conversations with medical fields. Folks that are in the medical professions, and they're like, listen, we're saving lives. How can I make that fun? Right. And I was, and I get it. Yeah. I mean, there's a level of translation and stuff that has to happen, but here's what I would say about, culture and, things that you do on purpose versus what are happening. So, the culture of your organization may have some very great core values, right? And that's aligning the team, and that's terrific. And everybody can strive for those every single day. So your culture is either going to be very purposeful or intentional, and you're working toward it every day. You're reading and looking and breathing these core values. And then there's things that are going to happen under the water. And I call it subcultures, right? You've heard that, the submarine cultures, right? Good things can happen. There's healthy subcultures and there's unhealthy subcultures. And every organization I've ever been in or consulted with or worked with has subcultures. Sure. So it's like, okay, if we understand that this is a natural thing that happens, right? We want to make sure we remove toxicity. We don't want a toxic subculture of complacency, all the negative things that you can think of, right? We want to see if, like, okay, if we know we have our set core values, I'm okay with a healthy subculture that says we still like to play, right? We still like to have some fun and channel that. Maybe not necessarily as an underlying core value that everybody gets hired on and that we live and breathe it, which obviously I'm going to promote that as a tool to success. But it's like it's okay to have a healthy subculture as well.
Yes.
And kind of the theme of your underlying theme of your business. And I hear family comes up a lot. I read a lot about people talking about family culture at work and all the pluses and negatives to that. And people like it, people don't like it. But it's like, if I resonate with family and I found a space in my life, in my heart for my company to be part of my family, amen, go for it. Yeah. Right. it's the same thing. Like but not everybody's going to be able to come into that culture as well. So I think, that's where we have to remember that there's that purposeful culture that we're bringing people in, where we as a leader, as a business owner, as a corporation, as a shareholders, we have to understand that, once we've established these values and this culture, we need to bring people in that align with them, and then we need to show it. Right? Yeah. The proof has got to be there. Same with fun. If we say that we're a fun first culture, and we're not showing that in their first couple of days of employment, you lose. Right. The subculture wins then, because we're not practicing what we preach. So I would say, to those that are like, okay, I don't know if there's room for fun, maybe not, but just realize in your culture, are you purposeful? Are you bringing people in? And then what do your subcultures say?
Yeah. When I think about the companies we've worked with, which are hundreds, and I think about when we talk about with them the role of having fun there, one of the things, at least that I have often said, is it isn't necessarily, though it could be, it isn't necessarily that we're planning fun games and activities as much as it is being able to be lighthearted and just be able to kid each other and laugh with each other and have fun with each other, enjoy each other's company. It doesn't necessarily have to be an activity per se. And I'm curious about your perspective on that.
Yeah, absolutely. So there, I do believe in play. I call it my principles of play, prioritize laughter in youth, and adding some gameplay and things like that. But, just getting along and having fun. One, remember the rule of grandma. If you wouldn't do it or say it in front of grandma, you shouldn't do it at work, right? We don't want HR nightmares. So, keep in mind the diversities of fun and things. But, there are opportunities, I think, and organizations really need team building activities, right? Like, if we're going to be working on communication and working together, there could be a better way to improve on those skills than sitting in front of a computer screen reading about how to be a better communicator. No, let's go actually communicate with each other. And if we can do it in a fun nature, what would that do for your business? Same with sales skills, right? Sales skills is really important. Are we going to read about them? Are we going to take an exam on it? Are we going to role play, or would it be more fun and more creative for us to play some games or to learn the skills we need to gain, but in a manner which makes it more fun and exciting? I mean, think about the way we're taught as kids. Right? We learn by play, right? By doing. But as we get older, the shift happens. Like, if that was the core of how we learned at a young age, why do we shift it? Because it's not socially acceptable anymore to play games or to be silly. And no, we're hardwired from the beginning to do it. And we just decide that, now we're just going to regurgitate it on an exam, right? Sure. I believe, I like to be up and moving. I like to be, teaching the skills I want my team to gain by having more fun interactions with each other. And we do that through gameplay. So kind of twofold there.
Yeah, it's interesting. As I'm listening to you and I'm thinking about my own experiences, Pete, and I think about, I want to go deeper on different types of leaders and your experience with them. But I think about, as I listen, my first company, and I remember it was a very, very successful company, and we had a wonderful leadership team. And we were interviewing two people who were finalists for a new role that we had created on our management team. This person was going to run a particular unit in my company. And it came down to two people, and both of them were people that I would describe were a good fit in terms of their skill set and, generally speaking, their values. But one of them talked about, in her previous role, she played all kinds of games with her team to get them engaged in things, and the other didn't. And honestly, I thought to myself at the time, and I think I was right for us, we weren't really a game playing kind of, it just wasn't our style. And that doesn't, we laugh a ton. I mean, there are management meetings, and everybody who knows me knows, where I laugh so hard that my sides hurt and I cry, because we just have a lot of really funny people, and we just really enjoy the things that we do and teasing each other and having fun. but we're not really a game playing culture.
Sure.
And if I had hired that woman who played a lot of games into our culture, I don't think it would have been a fit for us.
No, it absolutely wouldn't have been.
Yeah. And again, and so I'm curious, it gets me as I'm thinking out loud about this, I'm thinking about, again, the difference between game playing as one form of fun and just, and these aren't mutually exclusive, of course,
sure,
but different from just being able to laugh and kid each other and have fun in that kind of way.
Yeah. And that goes back to the cultural piece, right? And what I would label your brand of fun, right? And good for you guys for understanding that we do have a level, or with this first company you were explaining, you did have a level of fun, right? It was just in a manner that made sense. It was your brand of fun, and you could bring people in under that context, right? So you really have to understand that. So the best way you can do that is by talking with your people, right? And finding common interest in things that you like to do. Now, I always like to say that there's two types of people, those that participate in the parades and those that watch the parades, right? So I could have an amazing time being a participant in a parade and really that would be like gameplay. I'm participating. And there's others that just enjoy watching and learning and participating through that, right? And I use dance as a good analogy because I hate to dance. I mean, I will, right, when my wife forces me to, but ultimately, I just like to watch. Now, from the outside looking in, I may not be having a good time with that, right? So when I say, oh, he's not dancing, like he's just standing there watching, but I'm having the time of my life with the music and watching people and stuff like that. So you kind of have to make sure you, one, don't always slap that label on that somebody's unfun or they're not into something, right? Because they may be enjoying it, just being participating their own way. So the games that you choose to play, maybe it's not like your typical board game or things like that, but it may just be an experience that you're providing to that team where people can participate in the way that is healthy to them, right? And still enjoying it. So I think that, not to say that, I think I understand what you're saying, like actual full-on gameplay versus opportunities just to create an environment that's maybe we just send silly emails once a week and things like that. It's finding what that safe lane is, because everybody will appreciate to a certain degree, right? And then you can scale up or scale back as you see fit. But it's really getting to know the team, whether it's questionnaires, whether the onboarding process, the interviewing process, bringing people in, or if you're wanting to create this culture now, as a leader, you should be asking yourself, how can I make this fun for my team? And then ask them, what do you do for fun? So I've worked with a lot of companies, right? The one I recently was working with found out through just some activities. I wouldn't even call them games. It was just like, hey, a questionnaire. They were spinning the wheel. They were doing some different things in a team, but they found out that they actually all enjoyed this particular band, right? So music was such a big thing to them. And so what they did was they kind of created this culture around music, right? And it was so fun. And they did some rewards, and they did everybody got to be a DJ before one meeting. And so because they just found that it wasn't gameplay, it was just music play, right? So the brand of fun challenged, and they were able to really theme so many wonderful things in their culture around the fact that everybody was a music lover.
Well, that brings us to the end of the first part of our conversation with Peter Kusiak, creator of the Fun First strategy and author of Drop the F-Bomb in Your Business. When we resume in our next episode of Culture Architects, Peter will take us through his process for culture transformation, and he shares his experiences working with different leaders, different workplace types, and even different generations of the workforce.
This has been Culture Architects with David J. Friedman. Join us next time for more insights and wisdom from great leaders in all walks of life. To book David for your next event, or to learn more about his writing, speaking, or consulting, go to davidjfriedman.com. Culture Architects with David J. Friedman is a production of CultureWise.